Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26B Race Podcast. I'm Joe Mancini here once again, Coach Gerry Rodriguez. Oh, hey, what's up, buddy?
You got to say your name again. I couldn't even understand what you were saying.
If people don't know who I am by now, it's their fault. It ain't my fault. Coach Jim Lubinsky is here with Coach Gerry Rodriguez once again. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on the airwaves with you, my friend. How you doing?
Always the same. Always the same. You
Always.
keep it entertaining.
Hey, we got to keep it going. We got to keep the eyes, the ears engaged for the 45 minutes that we're on air here. And we always learn something good. But we want to keep them happy. We keep them coming back. Say, hey, that's not dry. It's not just the two talking heads going back and forth talking about Kamala or Donald. We're talking about swimming. We're talking about triathlon. People want to listen to this stuff. Come on, let's do it. So this session today, this episode today, it's all improv for Lubinsky because I have no idea what we're talking about. And I did this on purpose because I want to see how I respond to the info that you're about to spew, Jer.
All good. All good.
All good.
You're going to get into it though, because this is some good stuff. It's outside of the normal realm of education that we give, and I thought this would be good to talk about it timely because it's Olympic type information.
Oh, it's exciting. The Olympics were maybe the most exciting Olympics I've ever seen. So it was a lot of good battles. I'm looking forward to getting into the thick of it.
What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, sort of general thoughts, not just about the competition, but the opening ceremonies, the closing. If you saw it, just sort of the whole feel.
I thought it was awesome. They did things differently. They didn't have all the opening ceremonies typically, the people marching in, the way they did it on the boats, the way they used the backdrop of the city. I thought it was awesome, and the way they used the city as the venue, right? So there's things at the base of the Eiffel Tower, the cycling finish at the Eiffel Tower. They're swimming in the Seine. Sure, it was dirty, but whatever. They swam in the Seine. It looked awesome. It was a great, and I'm sure you'll get into this, but the venue and the challenges that provided at swimming in the Seine, it was awesome. You've never seen anything like it. Usually you get these super flat, calm waters these guys are swimming in. The way they had to navigate through those currents with nothing, and the garbage was nothing like we've ever seen before. It was really amazing. So,
Well,
what about you? What about your thoughts?
It's interesting. I want the organizers, the athletes obviously had their experience, but the organizers, they spent hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours preparing for this. And then it rained through the opening ceremonies. And, think about it. It's like sort of you're getting married and you're planning an outdoor wedding. Yeah. And it rains. It just sort of, you could get the feeling of you've fallen flat almost, right? All of those volunteers, all of the actors that they put in, let's remove the athletes for a moment, all the folks that made it happen, all the artists, it's as if it didn't even bother them. It didn't even matter it was raining. The piano player is playing there and the rain's falling on the piano. He's just cranking away. I mean, it was just, I thought, outstanding. Different flavor to it. Some portions of it were a little bit of a head scratcher to me, but I think it's what made it unique.
We all know Christophe. We know Christophe. And everything that was unique was made why it was in France. So we all know Christophe and the way he is. Just multiply that by a couple million and you get all the Frenchmen out there. And it was fitting for where it was. So I was entertained by it. And I thought it was a great venue. And they did a really good job making the city the focus of the Olympics, making it into the venues. Now it comes to LA. I saw this thing online. Somebody said, how the heck is LA supposed to put on the Olympics when they can't even figure out a Trader Joe's parking lot? So should be interesting having it in LA.
Hey, I was here in '84 and everyone was just grimacing for what it was going to be like traffic wise. And it was just flawless.
Yeah,
so I'm pretty confident we'll do a pretty decent job.
They'll bring in the right people. But hey, we're on Facebook Live right now on the Tower 26 public page. You guys have any questions, anything you want answered, write in the comments there and we will get to those sometime throughout the show. But what did we talk about last episode? Do you even remember what we did last episode, Jer?
It was a few weeks ago, and I think we sort of condensed why we set up our season the way we do, and then how that leads into this particular phase that we're in, phase 5, our racing phase, and the introduction and usage of open water skills and how you practice for those, where you practice for them, how you execute them in an event, why we do the training sessions the way we do them to prepare athletes for event day.
Exactly.
A lot of detail, I thought.
We had an athlete, he races in the Philippines. He lives in the Philippines. He did the 70.3 Davos last weekend. Peter, I want to show something. Peter, he does every single subscription plan workout to a T. Every single yard that you lay out in those workouts on the coaching.tower26.com, he does every single yard. He reports back the times diligently every single session. He did Davos 70.3. He placed overall, I think he was like third place. What was he? Third place overall, fourth place overall. He went 2:12 on the bike. He did a 29-minute swim, no wetsuit, rough conditions, and he finished it up with a 1:30 run, fourth overall. He won his age group
How
by
old is Peter?
10 minutes. He is 40 to 44 age group, so
Got
he's
it. Yep.
42.
Yeah.
But if you look at this picture, if you guys are watching on Facebook, you look at this
Oh,
sighting that
yes.
he is doing. This is, you can see the head come out of the water, both goggles out. He's looking over the chop. Talk about why Peter can do this, Jer, with this type of fluidity.
I wish everyone could see this. I know there are a lot of folks listening to this and not able to see this.
You'll be able to watch this on YouTube after the fact. When I get this up, by the time this is in the audio version, you can go to Tower 26 YouTube page and watch it on YouTube if you want to see the example of Peter sighting here in the Philippines.
I think if we put this image up, Jim, and we put it into the marketplace and we ask for comment on this image as to what's proper or improper about this, we will get lots of athletes, or a minimum of lots of comments, whether it's athletes and or coaches or administrators even, saying this is improper sighting. Meaning, for those of us who can't see this, Peter's head is completely out of the water. In fact, his chin is about, I would say, 2 or 3 inches, maybe even 4 inches above the surface of the water. So his eyes are clearing the water by probably close to a foot, would you say?
Oh, yeah.
He's looking straight ahead, heads up high, arms coming over, big sighting. And this is the proper way to sight in choppier conditions. This whole thing about alligator eyes sighting, guys, that's the circle with the slash through it. Do not do that. That does not exist. Well, doesn't exist. That exists in a pool that has 3 lane lines in either side of you, where the water is completely flat and there's not a ripple. So if you just lifted your eyes above the water level, you'd be able to see ahead of you. But in the real world, even in a pool, Jim, if you took out the lane lines, it gets choppy. So if you just lifted your eyes above the water, you can't see a marker ahead of you. Needless to say, in this, where was this, in the Philippines, you said?
Yeah, Davao 70.3.
Okay, you can tell this is choppy. There's wind chop. There's whatever time. There's obviously early morning, but there is chop in these conditions. You have to lift your head higher if you want to see your markers. If you don't want to see, you go ahead and do alligator eyes and see nothing.
But I just wanted to show that because we spoke about it last episode. We spoke about how if you work that into your training, makes it fluid, and then you see someone like Peter who's totally committed to the process. He goes into the race day, has an amazing race, executes without even thinking. He can work that into his stroke, and yeah, he came out of the water. I think it was third in his age group. He tore apart the field on the bike and then closed strong on the run. So congratulations to him, and thank you to buying into what we're selling, buddy. So what are we getting into on this episode, Jer?
Well, I thought we would review and talk about, Jim, some of the events at the Olympics. You and I haven't gone over this, so I'm going to bring up a handful of events, and which I'm pretty sure you've seen, but we haven't talked about what the specific events are for this episode that I extracted. Typically, as you know, we've gone through whatever 100 and something episodes now on. They're about teaching the methodology of coaching, teaching proper training prescriptions, teaching the technical aspects related to swimming, right? The proper technique that triathletes should use over pool swimmers and so forth and so on. But rarely have we actually had much of a discussion on racing tactics. And I thought, here we are, the premier event every 4 years in France. Why don't we look at some of these athletes and talk about the races that they did, on how tactically they executed them, on what the outcome was.
Paint the picture with our words, because as we found out in our 2 p.m. call a couple weeks ago, if we use footage from NBC on YouTube, they'll just shut down our YouTube channel like that, or our video like that. We won't be able to show anybody. So we're going to paint the picture with our words. Maybe I'll find an example here that's not copyrighted if I can, but we're going to talk about these, and if you guys, we can refer to it, and then you can go back and look at the race we're talking about on your own. So
the first one we're going to go over, I'm going to actually throw it to you. So I'm hitting you up. You talked about improv.
Yes,
I'm hitting you up.
Yes, and.
But you and I talked about this race probably the night that it occurred. Men's 400 on the track, Quincy Hall winner.
It was the most, I think maybe the most determination I've ever seen in an athlete closing out a race, because he just, I don't know if you guys saw this race. He did what it took to cross that finish line first. You see that last turn that he made in the 400, one time around the track, probably the fastest guy. Well, it was the fastest guys in the world of the 400. He was what, coming around third, maybe fifth
He
place,
must have been fifth. Yes.
and he turned on this afterburners with the most ugly stride I've ever seen. He has this gold grill in his mouth. Am I painting the picture? He's got
Oh,
his
yes.
teeth are all gold, and he's got the ugliest work face that I've ever seen in my life. But the look of determination, and he is just salivating at passing one athlete after another. The longest, grossest, most disgusting stride. His arms are all over the place.
It almost
But
looks
guess
like he's
what?
swimming with his arms.
Exactly. His arms were moving like they were a swim stroke. But guess what? He reeled them in and he passed them to the finish and he won the gold medal.
And you know what? Although from the belly button up didn't look pretty, and especially the face and the head back, but the grit of determination. But I found his stride to be outstanding. I felt his mechanics stayed fairly good, quite good relative to everybody else, right? Remember, it's who depreciates the least, right?
Yep.
When you were up against the
Yeah.
right against the wall there, and it was pretty astounding. And that was one of the fastest final Olympic finals ever. What it took to get into the final. I think there were 6 or 7 guys under 44 seconds to get into the final.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that about the stride, is because one thing I was saying over the course of all the track events is I've never noticed the type of filming they were doing at this Olympics. I don't know if you noticed it. You could see the power and the detail and in the strides of these athletes, especially as they're coming down the home stretch and they were closer to the camera. You could see the turnover with clarity. And my brother-in-law was over, and he's a producer. He produces shows like The Deadliest Catch and so he works a lot in film, a lot in camera, a lot in editing. And he said, what they're doing with that is they're slowing the shutter speed. The shutter speed of the camera was slower. And I don't know if it's something that they made a revelation, say, hey, you can see more detail when we slow the shutter speed. But something like that 400 or the women's 4x100, the amount of detail you can see in each stride. It wasn't just like the Roadrunner from the cartoon. Remember the cartoon,
Right.
the Roadrunner, his legs spinning over and over and over. It's like they slowed the legs down without slowing them down, so you could see the power that these athletes had with every stride. If it didn't make you want to go outside and run, I don't know what will.
Well, I think the cool thing about, if you're listening to this podcast, which you can do, you can now go to the Olympic site, type in whatever race, let's say we're talking about here, and right next to the event, you'll see the list of athletes, their names, their places, their times, the world record, and then you can click to view it also. So if you have Peacock, it'll be on Peacock and it'll just stream it for you, so you'll get to see these races over again. But this one was I thought, an outstanding one. The next one was did you see the women's marathon?
I did.
Women's running marathon.
Yes, I did. It was, yes. That's why I love that we're talking about this tactics, because it relates to a study I actually read yesterday. But I wanted you to get into the marathon, and I can get into the study that I read, and it all blends together, so it'll work out perfectly how this was.
So last event, right,
Yep.
on the calendar of the Olympics, and Hassan, who's the eventual winner, became the first athlete since, I believe it was 1952, if I'm correct, if I got the year right, at the Helsinki Olympics, when Emil Zatopek won the 5,000, 10,000, and the marathon. She's the first athlete to replicate that and win a medal in all 3. She was bronze medal in the 5K, bronze medal in 10K, and gold medal in the marathon. This is only I believe, her 3rd or 4th marathon. In this field, Jim, is the world record holder, okay? World record is 2:11:53. Now, there are a couple of ways to define world records for women. If it's done on a women's only course, it is ratified as a world record. If it's done on a course where it has men and women, they don't consider it a world record. I think they call it a world best. So this 2:11:53 was done in a race where it had a men's field also. So I believe they call it a world's best. The world record is actually 2:16:16. But she's racing against an athlete that's gone 2:11:53. Okay. Her winning time in this race was somewhere 222, 223, almost 220. I think it was 222.50 something is what she won the race in. Okay. So 11 minutes slower than the world record holder or the world best record holder, who's in the race, who, by the way, got second. I'm going to read out to you every 5K what her place was in the field, her place. And the reason I'm doing this is to demonstrate she went into this race with a race strategy and tactically stuck to it no matter what. Firstly, her half marathon split was 2:13.25. And then her back half of the marathon was 109, 113.25 front half, 109.30 on the back half. That's a 4-minute negative split, right? So you're running 20, 25 seconds per mile faster on the back half. Now, here are her places, and I'll read it every 5K. First 5K, 42nd place, then 34th place, then 13th place, then 15th, then 6th, 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 5th, on first. It is very difficult to be that patient. Let the world record holder and others of that ability level go ahead and even get 10 or 15 seconds on you, including running up that steep hill, and be patient and confident to come back and close the way she did. And in fact, in the last couple of minutes of the race, a few minutes to the end after the 40K, there were 5 women together. 5 women coming in to the last 1 to 2K.
And then what was the last 400 meters? She almost got ran into the barrier. Yes. Right? The guy almost got barreled right into the barrier. She had to change course and drive right through that because the woman who was leading, the world record holder, saw her coming up and tried to veer right in.
Try to box her in, sure.
Looked like a full contact hockey game out there for a couple
all
strides.
All race tactics, yeah.
She definitely thought on her feet, got around it, and then I think she used that adrenaline to create more of a space because she pissed her off when she tried to run her in the barrier. So that was a really exciting ending to that race.
And interestingly, the winner, I'm sorry, the winner was Hassan, the gal that got second, the world record holder. They protested against Hassan and lost the protest.
They protested against her, even though she tried to throw the forearm shiver into the. She tried to throw the forearm shiver into the barrier, and she protested. She protested that she missed her. But I was reading a study yesterday about pro triathletes, women and men pro triathletes, and how the top 10 in Kona vary from the 10 through 20 and the 20 through 30. And I could bring up the study. I forget exactly who wrote it. It was very in depth.
One more time, repeat that. The top 10.
How the execution varied in Kona, 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and 21 through 30.
Got it.
And so they didn't really look at the swim. They looked at the bike and the run, and how the men's execution on the bike for the top 10 had a pretty big negative split front half to back half of the bike. And the men who were in that top 10 who had that big negative split, all positive split the run, but it was the ones who were in that top 10 had the lowest amount of positive split. So nobody in the Ironman World Championships negative split the run, but the men did negative split the bike. But now the women, like what you're saying, the women got on the bike, and the ones who placed in the top 10 had the least amount of variability on the bike. They were boom, straight line, didn't have any positive, didn't have any negative split. They started out at 200 watts, they finished at 200 watts. And then same thing on the run. Who could hang on to that pace? No one negative split. They all positive split. But I think saying that, what you're saying about the women running the marathon and Hassan running that perfect negative split, sticking to her execution, what does that tell you about the women mindset versus the men mindset? Being able to stick to that, not letting ego or testosterone talk. Stick to it. I don't have to be a front runner. I don't even have to be in the top 10. I could be in the top 40, knowing I'm sticking to my plan. I'm staying with it. Because I thought the same thing when I was reading that yesterday. The men let their machismo talk, and they take it out strong, and they push hard on the bike in that back half, where the women, they just have confidence. They're like, I'm going to chug along at my pace, knowing that's going to lead to the best run off the bike.
I know what you're trying to say, and it does take a lot of confidence, which is what the women demonstrated by being more patient and allowing for a sort of even split all the way through. Men's dynamic in Kona is different
Yeah.
because the ability level of the male cyclists at the moment, we've got probably close to 15 cyclists worldwide in the sport, the triathletes that are very, very good riders. I mean, look at Cam Wurf that had the course record. I mean, there's 5 guys riding faster than him now.
Yeah.
He's a Tour de France rider. So the level of ability now in the cycling leg of triathlon is super high. So I think there's more tactics being played on the bike than perhaps on the women's field. It's not as deep presently. It'll catch up, but not as deep with how many terrific cyclists they have in the women's field relative to the men's field. So I suspect that probably played into that outcome, I would think.
Yeah.
But
I
did
was
they give
thinking that same thing. It's like
yeah.
it's not apples to apples comparison,
Right.
but I just thought it was interesting to see the difference in execution strategies and how the women had the confidence in, hey, you know what? I'm just going to race my race and know when I get off the bike, that's where the money's made. Bike for show,
Yep.
run for dough. I'll get on the run, knowing I rode my ride, and I'll be able to run that run strong all the way through, which is, I think it's a good takeaway for many of the age groupers out there. You're going to feel good on the bike. You're going to feel great. You're fresh. You're coming out of the water. You're ready to use your energy. You got to stick to your plan. Just like Hassan, she stuck to her plan, reeled them in as she went, negative split by 4 minutes. And I mean, look at the result, gold medal.
So let's talk about the same thing now, sticking to your plan, setting up a plan and sticking to the plan on how the outcome can be different. Men's 1,500-meter freestyle, 1 mile in the pool, versus men's 1,500-meter run on the track. So let's set the stage.
I like this comparison. This is nice.
Let's set the stage. World record holder, Olympic champion coming in, Bobby Fink, won in Tokyo, the 800 and the 1,500, American athlete. And basically his strategy in Tokyo on how he lays out his race development, he swims with the field, usually a tad behind them, hanging on the best he could, but he has incredible closing speed. His last 50 meters, he's been untouchable. And that's how he won both the 800 and 1,500 at the Tokyo Olympics. Well, coaches and athletes throughout the world have had 3 years, because it's not 4 years this time. We had Tokyo in 2021, right? So they had 3 years to review Bobby Fink's strategy and train for it. So they come into the 800 and Bobby Fink applies the strategy and he loses. He does not win. He gets beaten by Whiffen, a younger gentleman from, okay. So he gets second or third, I believe.
So Whiffen did his homework, knew how to
Whiffen
match
did his
him
homework and his
stroke for
coach.
stroke,
Yep.
and could bring it home stronger than Bobby because he pushed the effort earlier, wore Bobby out, couldn't bring it home with the strength.
Well said. If 3 of them swam together, Whiffen, Fink, and this Paltrarani, if you see that correctly, Italian guy, Paltrarani, outstanding swimmer. First, second, third, with Fink being second. So he did not win the 800, but close finish, 7:38, 7:38, 7:39, all within,
it was close.
half a second or so.
Exciting.
Very close.
For an 800 to be that close, it was an exciting one.
So now what happens? Here comes the 1,500, okay? And this is the brilliance of having confidence, believing in your coach, and also believing in yourself. Bobby Fink decided to do the opposite and take it out hard, and went out fast, got to the front, body length lead over in the first 200 meters. The 400 meters, he maintained over a body length and a half lead, and he continued to hold that lead. Now, let's back up to the 800, and let's back up to the prior Olympic Games, both of which he lost the 800, as I just mentioned, by tenths of a second. And at the prior Olympics, he won the 800 and the 1,500 by tenths of a second, right? So all close finishes, but he just had this incredible closing speed. Instead, now, he reverse the strategy. And here's what's interesting. I would tend to bet that no coach or the other coaches of this, because it was the same 3 guys again in the 1,500, Whiffen and the Italian gentleman, they did not prepare for Fink going out fast. They prepared for how we're going to close strong and outclose him.
Mm-hmm.
No one prepared for the inverse happening. And he broke him. He ended up winning the 1,500 by 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah,
over second place. And Whiffen now was third, 9 or 10 seconds slower. So he changed the strategy and ended up mentally breaking the field. And his coach even was crying at the end. You could tell they put a lot of emotion into setting this strategy and hoping that it would work. And it was successful, widely successful. In fact, he broke the world record.
Yep.
The only men's world record, I believe, broken at the Olympics in swimming at this games.
Can you touch on that? Why was there only one Olympic record broken? Usually see a world record broken. Usually see it every race. You see a world record, closer world record, that line on the screen. They just now touch it. Boom, another world. Why was no world records broke? I'm diverting off of your
no,
attention
good point.
Race,
and I can only speculate because I've been proven wrong, because I predicted there'd be many world records broken in swimming on times we're going to be outstandingly fast at this Olympic Games. Well, I think performances were outstanding. The times just didn't correlate with some of the performances because this coach believes the pool was a slow pool. And how do we define a slow pool? The pool was shallow. It met Olympic standards of 2.1 meters, I think, is the depth that it's required to meet. And it was pretty much 2.1 meters throughout the entire pool. And most competition pools, maybe 2.1 meters in the shallow end, but they go down to 4, 5, or 6 meters in the deep end.
I mean, you could tell when they were taking the video from underneath, it was closer than any video, that camera angle I've ever seen in an underwater, an underwater angle.
And we can tell the backstrokers had to change their starts to make shallower starts. And some athletes, you could tell on their push-offs who were used to going deeper, had to alter how they did their wall push-offs. So I think this had a lot to do with it. You're changing your turns. And then also you have depth, because it's shallower, you will have much more turbulence. Water bounces off the bottom towards the surface, and you create more turbulence between all 5 walls, right? You have 4 walls around the pool, and it's called the bottom of wall. You have 5 walls, and they're now in closer proximity.
Yeah.
So this is considered a slower pool. And it showed up in,
I say this all the time about swimming in a lake versus the ocean. When it's the same thing, you can get much choppier conditions in a lake because of shallower bottom, closer wall, closer shores. It's like someone takes a bathtub and just shakes it up. When you're going to a lake swim, you got to be ready for those choppy conditions, just like in this pool. And also, usually in these races, what I noticed is there's 2 lane lines. There was only 1 lane line in this pool, so it must have been not as wide as other pools as well, if I'm correct in that observation.
I don't know. It looked to be 10 lanes, which is the size of many competition pools. And you have a certain minimum width between each, and you're required to have, but I don't know what the width of this pool was. But it was not an ideal, and it's also not a permanent pool. It was just built for the Olympic Games, right?
Yeah. So that was interesting. So
Fink wins, right?
Yep.
Wins by 5 seconds with a strategy of take it out from the front, lead from the front, put the screws in, hurt everybody, and break them. And it works. Now let's go to the men's 1500 on the track, which happens to be, by the way, Jim, you might know this, my favorite race of the Olympic Games.
I love it.
Of every race. I'm a track fanatic. I love track and field, and the 1500 is my all-time favorite race to watch.
Why did they run? Let me ask you this: why did they run the 1500 and not the 1600?
And not the mile?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
That's why I bring this up. I was a 1600 meter state champion in Illinois in 7th grade. So I want to see him run the 1600. See if they can beat my time from 7th grade in the Olympics. I don't think they can.
Am I right? Did you break 5 minutes?
Yeah, 4:59.15. 7th grade 4:59, 8th grade 4:50, 4:52.
How old were you? How old was 7th
grade? I don't know, maybe 11 or 12, somewhere in there. 12-year-old. Yeah. Retired on top. Didn't find running back until I was 29 again.
Well, 220 pounds of all muscle after that. You have to retire from running.
Still doesn't slow me down. But yeah. So I don't know why. I actually read it and I still couldn't decipher why they do the 1500 and that's 1600. But that being said, go ahead.
Let's go to the Olympics now. So we have and let me do a little build up to this. Ingebrigtsen had been slightly injured last year. He's the athlete who's this outstanding career, right? 5K runner, 1500 meter runner,
Norwegian, right?
Norwegian, the whole Norwegian mystique of how they train, so forth and so on.
He won the gold medal in Tokyo, right?
Correct.
Medal in Tokyo for the 1500.
Yep.
Won the 5K gold medal, didn't he, in Tokyo?
He won the 5K, yes, and he won the 5K here.
Yeah, but we're talking about the 1500, right?
We're talking about the 1500 now. So that's sort of a minor little lead up. There's some injuries. His season got started a little late. He wasn't running as well. But his last 3 or 4 races leading into the Olympics, he was improving from 332 to 330. And then finally, he actually, 3 weeks before the Olympic Games, ran, I think it was in London, ran a 326.5 or 0.6, something like that, to put down the 4th fastest time ever over 1500 meters, right? So he was peaking at the right time. Josh Kerr from Great Britain, excuse me, I think had run 3:28, and then the American runners had run 3:30-ish, Nagoose and Kessler and so on. So what's expected, and Ingebrigtsen's strategy has always been, and it's an interesting strategy. You watch him start any race, he doesn't care if he's on the first line or the second line of the start. He purposely starts slow, goes to the dead last spot of the field, like trots out at almost 10-minute mile pace is what it looks like, right? And then he slowly makes his way to the front, runs his way up. It's like he doesn't want to get caught up in the jostling that goes on. Makes his way to the front, and then eventually, after about 800 to 1,000 meters, he starts winding up the pace, winds it up, and mostly no one's able to stay with him. So he just winds it up, and then wins.
Reminds me of myself in 7th grade. It's the way I ran. Yep.
So we'll
I'll get the video. So go ahead. I threw you off. Go ahead.
So that's one of his race strategies. His other race strategy is that I've observed over the years of watching him race is he gets to the front in the first 4 or 5, and he just sits there with the lead runners, and he's always able to outrun everybody with 150, 200 meters to go. So he has 2 strategies. So he comes into this games. He has been beaten a couple of times this year. Okay. And he's been beaten by Josh Kerr, I believe, twice. So he does not come in perhaps as the favorite, only comes in with the fastest time with great momentum. So what strategy should he use? What is the strategy that he should use? Well, this coach would say, let's go with the Bobby Fink strategy and go out hard, hurt everybody early, make them work, and break them. Okay. Yep. So coming into the finish, then everyone's in pain, and you should be able to hang on and win. Well, that's the strategy he did. He went to the front from right away, took the lead, started winding up the field, but everybody hung on. And now it was a long pace line. No one was bunched up. So the pace was hot. But he was good for 1,460 meters.
Yep.
Not quite 1,500 meters. And he lost. And he ended up getting 4th place. He didn't even get a medal.
Well, that's being a front runner like that, that's a risk that you're always going to take, especially against that type of field. Like, you're setting the pace. He was the front runner for 3 of the 4,
right.
Almost 4 laps. He was the front runner, and people were just biding their time, staying on his tail, using that draft, using his carrot to just keep him right there. And you saw that last turn, that last straightaway, they made that turn, and it was just eye of the tiger from those 3 guys that came up behind him.
Right. So Kerr got 2nd, and Nagoose, the American guy, got 3rd, and then he got 4th, and another American, Kessler, a young kid who's going to be one of our rising stars, was 5th. The thing is, on paper, he had the fastest time going into this race by a couple of seconds, over most of the field by 4 or 5 seconds. And his form was improving leading up. As his coach, if I were his coach, this is the strategy I would have laid out. But it didn't work. Versus it worked with Bobby Fink. So what's the, it's easy to be Monday morning quarterback and say he should have done this differently, right? Use the other strategy of run with the field and then outrun everybody, outkick everyone at the end. Didn't work this time. My response to that is, it's like playing the lotto. If you don't buy a ticket, if you don't take a chance, you don't have a chance.
Right.
And the odds of him winning this race, trying to outkick Cole Hawker, who was the Olympic gold medalist, the American, and Josh Kerr, I think would have been tough. So he chose perhaps the less risky strategy, perhaps, but it didn't work this time.
And when you're competing in that level, you're a big football guy, right? You go to football every weekend. You see the Rams play.
Yes.
Those guys in the NFL, why do you think practice with such focus on detail, attention to every tiny detail? Because one screw up at that level or one misstep at that level, it's an interception, a touchdown the other way, right? It's the same thing in track and field. It's the same thing in swimming.
4 times last weekend against Dallas.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. But it's the same thing at track and field, right? When you're at that level, one slight mishap, whether it's taking a risk and not being able to hang with that risk or making a wrong position choice, these other guys are going to pounce because everything is seconds. They're seconds off of each other. It's
tenths,
hundreds of seconds off of each other. One slight misstep, they capitalize on it. You saw Cole Hawker's eyes When he saw that gap open up, you could see it as he's 75 meters from the finish. He sees that gap open up, and you see his eyes. It's like a 4-year-old Madeline on Christmas morning coming downstairs. Boom! Holy that gap opened up, and boom! He was gonna take advantage of every second of that and not look back. It was awesome to see that.
The last 100 meters of that race should be watched by everybody 10 times to see what Cole Hocker did. But you know, it didn't work out this time for Ingebrigtsen. Truthfully, I'm proud of him for deploying that strategy. It just didn't work. But I think it was the right strategy to use. Monday Morning Quarterback would say we should have done something else. But I think it was the right strategy in this case. And in fact, let's lead into Katie Ledecky, right?
One thing I want to touch on that race, though, that did bother me with Ingebrigtsen.
Yes.
He kept looking at the big screen. If you watch that 1,500-meter race, he's running the entire time. There's a big screen. You guys can't
jumbo
see
screen.
it.
Many tracks have it, yes.
Is up, and he kept looking at the jumbo screen. He wasn't focused on the process. He was focused on it, but he kept letting that jumbo screen and watching what his competition was doing behind him. Yes. He kept that as his focus point and not what was going on right here in the present, focused on the process. And we always talk about focus on the process.
I'm going to do the but. I'm not, this may come across on some
improv.
Big
yes, and
Ingebrigtsen fan. I am, but I'm a fan of the race, and I'm a fan of all these athletes that run that race. That is his norm. Ingebrigtsen lives on the Jumbotron. Okay. He lives watching that screen to look at athletes' positioning, to gauge how fast they're closing or where they're at. It's part of his racing thing. If that was something new, I'd go, okay, why'd you do that? But it's not. So it didn't bother me. But for you,
this coach,
you're
saying, I'm not promoting that with my athletes. I say, you know what, we need tunnel vision. I don't care if your parents are screaming and yelling. They have a sign that says, you know, will you marry me on the side? Your fiance had, you don't pay your head. You got tunnel vision. You cross that finish line, then you can get on one knee and, you know, accept that proposal. But you are focused on the present. You're focused on the process. You're not letting all those other distractions get in. And I'm going to call Ingebrigtsen. I'm going to tell him, stop looking at the Jumbotron, get your head down, and execute. He would have won by a minute if he would have done that. Coach Jim.
Possibly. Monday Morning Quarterback, you get to say that now, but during the race,
we have to learn from our past experiences, right?
Yes.
We're always learning from that past experience. We're debriefing post-race. This coach is going to be debrief with them and tell them, get your head down and run. Leading in the Katie Ledecky, what do we got?
Well, let's take the Katie Ledecky situation. She swims the 400. She used to be the world record holder at 356. The world record is now 355. She went 4:01 or 4:02 in her race in the 400, gets third. Did not swim, I think, up to her potential. Obviously, she's 5 seconds slower. Now, we do have a slower pool. She does not take the lead from the beginning. The other two gals took it out, and they handed it to her pretty good. So she ends up third in almost 4:02. I think it's 4:01.7, 4:01.9, something like that. And then come the 1,500 and the 800. And the 800 now, by the way, she is racing against the gold medalists in the 200 and 400. I'm sorry, gold medalist in the 400. So the girl that beat her by 4 seconds in the 400. Yep. She's racing her in the 800. But what does she do? She does the Bobby Fink strategy. By the way, same coach, Anthony Nesty. Who strategy.
Swam first, Fink or Ledecky?
Both swim for the same coach.
I know, but who swam I can't remember which event went first. Fink went first, Ledecky was later.
Yeah. And I believe.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Whatever. I don't know why I said that.
No, good observation. But she jumps on it from the very beginning, gets the slight lead, but never. And you could see the Titmus trying to close on her at the 300, the 400, trying to get even. And Ledecky would never let it happen, because once somebody gets even, let's look at this from a psychological standpoint of racing. If you're behind and you get even, the behind person is going, aha, the person is fading. Yep. The leader is going, they just closed. Always. So there's this whole mental game that goes on. Ledecky would not let her. Titmus closes, she surges. Titmus tries to close again, she surges. Never gave it up, and then finally, Titmus, I think, snapped. It meant, you know what? Okay, you got this. I'll give it to you. Back down, and then that was Ledecky's opening to even go further ahead, and she wins the 800. And she did the same thing in the 1,500. She took it out hard and just led the entire way, winning by almost 10 seconds. So these strategies were win from the front, whereas there are other strategies of win from behind or win from more accurate pacing. There's no right or wrong in these strategies because these athletes, Jim, as you were just saying, the difference between them and on any training day is tenths of a second, right? So everyone gets to the start line. Anybody could win these races. It's what are we going to do on event day? How are we going to race? Strategically, what are we going to set up? How are we going to execute it? And what if something goes wrong? What do we do?
Yeah.
And this is what, Ledecky worked out well in the 800 and the 1500. Bobby Fink didn't work so well in the 800, worked in the 1500, completely changed strategy. Worked for those guys, didn't work for Ingebrigtsen.
Well, I think it's really interesting to look at the change in approach over the course, maybe a day, maybe 2 days. They weren't just set in their ways. They're not saying, okay, I'm a front runner, I'm going to stay a front runner, or I close strong, I'm just going to do that because that's what I know best. They were willing to open up their mind to something different, probably through their coach's suggestion. Hey, take it out strong. Let's really give it to him at the start. Ledecky learned from Fink, or Fink learned from Ledecky. They used a similar tactic, and both of them proved to be successful because both of them have that closing ability, and they changed it up. It's like Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3. Do you remember when he fought Clubber Lang? The first time he was fighting from the left, from the right as his power punch, and then Apollo trained him to fight with his left. So he was open to changing over the course of a few months until he fought Clubber the second time. Right,
Look at you got to be open back to 40 years of
right.
Of
we don't just get set in our
TV
ways.
Boxing history.
We don't just get set in our ways. Be Rocky Balboa. Learn to fight with the other hand. Think outside the box and think what's going to give you a little leg up on that competition.
Well, the coaches of the two swimmers from Ireland and Italy need to take a page out of your book because what you're basically saying is be prepared for every possible outcome. And those coaches were not prepared for Bobby Fink going to the front in the 1500. It's not what they train their athletes. They train them to race him with 100 meters to go, a minute to go.
Right.
And that didn't occur.
Hey, I got something cool here. This is not copyrighted. I'm going to show this picture. Coach Megan, our producer here, Coach Megan Melgard, and who's that with her?
There you go, Katie Ledecky.
Charles de Gaulle Airport. There's a picture of Katie Ledecky and Coach Megan in the airport together there.
That's right. They were departing France. Yeah.
Departing France together. Katie had some gold medals. She showed them to Megan, and that's a really cool shot. So thanks for sending that, Meg. Awesome stuff.
Yay. All right. Let's go to the 10K. 10K men and women swimming events, and then we'll wrap up with the men and women's triathlon.
Swimming 10K. Okay.
Swimming 10K. The Seine, right?
Right.
10 kilometers, rectangular course. Each loop's about a mile, 6.2 mile race. Swim out straight in favor of the current. Make a left turn, left shoulder turn. You swim about 50 meters, make another left shoulder turn, and then you're dead on into the current. And then you make a left turn again. There's the feeding station. So that was your rectangle. So straight up, 7-ish 100 meters, across 50 meters, back down 700 meters against the current, and then back across at the bottom of the rectangle where the feeding stations or your opportunity to feed should you choose. 6 loops, right?
Yep.
There is one rule of thumb. And as you know, Jim, I love open water racing. I have a lot of experience in it, and I have a lot of experience coaching it. We need improvements in the United States in open water swimming and open water racing.
Mm-hmm.
Our athletes did not do well. We placed 15th, 16th, and 19th, I believe, in the men's race. Women placed 15th and 16th. There is one rule of thumb that is the most important rule of thumb in open water racing. Do you know what that is?
No, you're going to tell me.
Regarding placement and strategy.
You are the king of execution in open water, so let's let everybody know.
You stick to this rule, and you will vastly increase your odds of winning races. It's called a one body length rule. It's that simple. Never be more than one body length off the leader of the pack, the lead pack, if you want to win a race. The moment you go any further off than one body length off the leader, you've greatly increased your odds of defeat. Mm-hmm. And so there's your opportunity. Now I'm going to tell you, let's look at Sharon, the Netherlands gal that won. Of all the loops going around, and there were, I think there were a dozen to 18 points where they took readings of what place and what time, their split times were. Out of all 18 timing stops on place stops, she was either first or second the entire time.
Right there.
There's the one body length rule.
Yep.
Right? Ivan, the gentleman that won, out of all his stops, he was either first or second position the entire time.
Wow.
American athletes, okay, that placed 16th and 17th, at all the checkpoints, they were between 11th and 20th place and 13th and 21st place. So you cannot give up placement in races where drafting is critical. And you cannot give up placement in a race like this one, where there's a massive negative current. Massive negative current. No, you have a massive positive current, but the thing in positive currents, you don't lose much. In positive currents, a fast swimmer cannot break away from slower swimmers. The delta variance is super small. But in a negative current, there's the opportunity to really bust up a pack because you're fighting against this headwind.
So talk about real quick. Talk about why one body length is so important. Like, why don't you want to get beyond one body length?
It's too much to make up. Right. So in cycling and running, we run at a much faster rate than we can swim. And cycling, we ride at a much faster rate than we can run or swim. So you can have a variance of a much greater distance in cycling, because cyclists go from riding at, as you know, 25 to 30 miles an hour in a race, and they can be up to 40 or 45 miles an hour, right? Yeah. So they can make these huge 20 to 50% jumps in output. The swimmer, who's swimming one the slowest of all three that athletic disciplines, their jump in output, or their jump in ability to increase, is so incremental, 1 or 2 seconds per 100. So you're looking at 2%, 3%.
Right. Whereas, so if you're 5-6 body lengths away to catch up and pass that first guy or first woman, you're going to have to swim 50 seconds per 100. Right? You can't do it.
These coaches that deliver these prescriptions to sit back there at 7 and 8 body lengths back, you're gambling with your athletes' victory.
Because it's no different than what we said about the track. It's like everybody is within hundredths of a second of each other. Everybody swims pretty fast. So to get past that guy that's already swimming at top end, how are you ever going to swim past your top end? It's just it's not practically possible.
Ask every investment manager. There's something called risk management. Okay? Your risk management in swimming is the 1 body length rule. You violate it. It doesn't mean you can't win from 6 or 7 body lengths back. You can. But you've just increased your risk.
Yep.
Don't do that. So we didn't have good performance.
So how is G-Rod going to get in charge of USA open water swimming? Well, that's what we're going to do.
That's a whole political game. That'll never happen.
Yeah.
So triathlon, great races. I don't know if you saw them.
I did see them, yes.
Yeah. Wonderful events. Great women's race. I mean, loved it.
Yep.
Fantastic men's race. Really, really good racing. Unfortunately, our women, I thought, did well. Taylor Spivey, right? Top 10. Did she get 9th or 10th or something like that?
I think it was 10th. Yeah.
Yeah. Good performance. And then Taylor Knibb was, I believe, 19th or somewhere, something like that.
Yeah.
Top 20. Tough race, tough conditions. Slidey, they had some rain on their course, so there are some crashes. Taylor Knibb also did the time trial on the cycling team.
We won't go into that, but that was a rough day for the women to do that time trial. So that was just
but rough day for some, not so much for others.
Well, they had to be smart. They couldn't let haste get in the way. Let's not go down that. But the ones that didn't get hasty, took the turns nice and carefully, didn't let their ego get the best of them. Those are the ones who came out on top.
Yes. And they could also be equipment things related to that. But point is, we were 10th and we were 19th in the women's field. And I think the men, I wrote it down here somewhere. I don't remember our places exactly. What were we? Do you recall?
I don't remember.
Here we are. 29th and 31st. So these are not good performances for the men's team. Unfortunately, I just read last week that our high performance budget got cut.
Don't know
what all that means, and comes on the heels of not having great performances at the Olympics. So I haven't heard the inside scoop yet as to, I don't know even if I will, as to what occurred or why, but I think these, from the U.S.'s standpoint, these are going to be very disappointing performances by our athletes. Now, they did win a silver medal, right, in a very, very close relay.
That was fun to watch. I mean, that's tactics. It's just gutting out the effort, but it was fun to watch that relay. So I'm glad the U.S. did kind of pick up some hardware in that, even though it wasn't traditionally the kind of triathlon we're used to watching.
Sure.
So it was nice to put together, get some or at least bring some hardware home for the U.S.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very happy for him.
Here's what we do. You take over open water swim coaching. I take over triathlon coaching. Guaranteed golds in 2028 for triathlon and open water.
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to help commentate the open water swim at the Olympics. Rowdy Gaines, I love Rowdy. I love his enthusiasm, but Rowdy, we need to equip him to, you and I need to go on there and help him and equip him to sell his enthusiasm and with our knowledge and make the sport exciting and teach. You've got 4 hours, 5 hours of opportunity to educate everybody about open water swimming and how to race smart, tactically, all of that sort of stuff.
That's right. You can break it down, and we can talk hours on end, Jared.
Well, so I know you can. Sure,
we're hired for 2028 LA, but a lot of good stuff. And I said all of our athletes on our 2 p.m. calls during the Olympics is get good takeaways from this, learn from it. So thank you for breaking that down. I think we learned a lot from what you just brought up on these points, and go back and watch those races and see how Coach Gerry focused in on those points and learn from them and see how you can work that into your execution, whether it's staying focused, focusing on technique, getting ugly, and just getting that eye of the tiger across the finish line first, no matter what it takes. So fun stuff. Do we have time to do a workout of the episode, Jer? Or
let's just run through it quickly. We'll just hit the main set and then we could close out.
Okay, remember, go to coaching.tower26.com. We will talk about this, and we're going to have the open water swimmers in the 2028 Olympics are going to be doing this very workout. So go subscribe, coaching.tower28 coaching.tower26.com. And we will get you on the same workouts the open water swimmers will be doing it for the
You've moved us up for a couple of towers, huh?
Tower 26.
Yeah.
I just heard something fall. I know there's a rat in here.
All right. So easier warm-up here, guys. Very short warm-up, condensed, because at this time of the season, we don't do longer warm-ups because the many races don't allow even having warm-up opportunity, or it's very short. So our warm-ups here are very, very condensed. Main set, we had 5 swims. So we broke it into 5 different segments. And the distance that you're swimming would be something that takes approximately 7 or 8 minutes to do. So look at this as 5, 7 to 8 minutes efforts. First one, we did this at 75%. We're resting about a minute, by the way, in between each of these, a minute and a half max. 75% effort, but we were also sighting 1 time per 25. So we need to put sighting in. And Jim, what I did not talk about was the lack of skill of many athletes in open water. Their sighting skills, they were pretty abysmal for some of them. Some were very, very talented. Others were not talented at all. So the first one, it's 1 sight per 25 at 75% effort. Number 2, we sighted 2 times per 25 for your distance. And it's a different distance, by the way, for everyone, our different levels of athletes that we coach. So 600s for our fast athletes, 500, 400, whatever your various ability levels are. And that one, we went up to 80% effort. So we increased output marginally, sighted 2 times per 25. The third one, we then took that one and we went up to 85% effort. So sort of a very solid upper aerobic output. And we broke it into a series of 6 100s, or 5 or 4, depending on your level. 15 seconds rest, but 85% effort. We wanted our athletes to sustain that 85% throughout all of those 100s and be super consistent. So for easy math, let's say you did a minute per 100, you'd be going 6 minutes would be your total time if you subtracted out the 15 seconds rest, right? So sustaining that 1 minute pace. We use the fourth one as all recovery, Jim, not a hard stroke. Athletes could put their pulling gear on if they wanted to, work on good mechanics, reduce effort down to 65 or 70%. And then the last one, we came and we took the effort and the time that you were doing on those 100s. In the example I gave, the 1 minute pace that the athletes were swimming, and I only used a minute because it's easy to do the math. It was now continuous, no break, and we had to try and swim 6 minutes if you're going a 600, or 5 minutes if you're going a 500, or 4 minutes as the example. So we're trying to nail down the pacing that you were hitting on your 100s with the 15 seconds rest, with no rest now, the extraction of rest. So you're really up here in the 85 to 90 to 92% of maximum heart rate range. And we did some easy recovery after that, and then we concluded the workout, guys, with a partner. This is really important if you could have a partner, equal ability, and we did what we call paceline 50s, and here's the 1 body length rule. Jim, you and I are partners. You lead a 50 out. I sit on your feet. You sight 4 times to the 50, 2 times for 25. I sight just 1 time, and I make sure no gap occurs. I got to sit on your toes the entire time. At the end of the 50, we just switch out, where I would lead out and you would sit on my feet. We take about 20 seconds rest-ish between each 50. but these 50s are all at race takeout effort, pretty high output.
So we're not only working the efforts, not only working in all the skills, but we're also working in that muscular resiliency by hitting those longer efforts, building the pace as we go. So when you get in the race day, just like all these athletes we're talking about, we depreciate the least as the race goes on. So we
Well
keep
said.
working in these sets. So really good one there. Go to coaching.tower26.com, subscribe. You get all those workouts and all the video, all the audio, all Coach Gerry's buttery tones leading you through each workout. So good stuff, Gerry. We'll get to some questions next episode. We're a little over on time here. You know what we're talking about next episode yet, or is that TBD?
TBD.
TBD. We got the
Got a
Santa
busy
Barbara
weekend, so we'll deal
Triathlon.
with that. Yep.
Santa Barbara Triathlon this weekend. All of our hands are going to be full. If you guys are looking for a race, jump in something last minute. If you're local and you're looking to volunteer, give back. Come up to Santa Barbara this weekend. We look forward to having you. Go to santabarbaratriathlon.com for more info on that. Anything else, Jer?
Jim, thank you as always. You make this, you make the time fly by.
Oh God, I can't believe it. An hour already. So thank you, Gerry. Well prepared for this one. I really got a lot out of it. So thanks. And for Gerry Rodriguez, Jim Binsky, this is the Tower 26B Race Road Podcast. See you later, guys.